With the state of the economy, many of you may be looking for a hearty meal that's inexpensive to feed the family. Well, before my mother passed, she showed me a simple recipe. I call it po' boy stew. Take a chair. Dad's going to show you how to make it. What Dad can do. Now I'm going to show you a full meal. It's going to be, you'll need chicken. You can do chicken thighs or drumsticks. Tonight I'm going to do chicken thighs. This is what I've got. You'll need 2 packs of the ramen noodles. I prefer this brand, but you can use any, as long as they've got the little flavor packing on it, and it needs to be chicken flavor. All right, you'll need 2 of those. These are right about 35 cents a piece at the time of this recording. So 35 cents a piece. Pack of chicken costs you, it depends on how many family members you have and how many pieces of chicken you want them to have. Since it's just the 2 of us and we get maybe a pack of 4 or something, you're looking at $5-6. So $5 plus 35 and 35, you're looking at 70 cents, $5.70 roughly. Along with that, we're going to have a canned good. They can be pretty pricey right now, maybe $1.50. So that's $5.70 plus $1. That puts us at $6.70 plus another 50. That'd be $7 and what, $7.20 tax, something along those lines. And we're going to make some rice to go along with it. We're going to make a single cup of rice. If you're making more than 1 cup for your family, that's just fine. But a small bag of rice, roughly about a pound, you can get that for anywhere between $1 and $1.50. So if you add that amount on there, even if it's far more, let's say 50% of that, add another 50 cents, and you're looking at maybe $8 and some change for this entire meal that I'm going to show you here in just a moment. And that's why I gave it the nickname po' boy stew. It's very hearty, very delicious, and it's very timely right now with the economy. I know a lot of people can't cook, and they'll be learning, or they need to be learning, because eating out is expensive, and you can make a full meal like this for the family that'll fill everybody up and be hearty for less than $9, less than what you pay for a large burger at a burger place. So we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to get the chicken on and popping. So I'm going to fill this pot up about 50%, or maybe about 3/4 of the way. And we're going to boil the chicken. So the ingredients in this chicken, our seasonings in the chicken, is very simple. For this portion, it's going to be just salt and pepper. I'm going to boil it with salt and pepper. We're going to boil it until it is completely cooked. The old-fashioned cooks like my mother, they didn't use a lot of seasonings. They used a lot of patience. So we're going to fill that pot 3/4 of the way. This is great also if you got to cook when you just got home. You don't have to worry about putting the meat out to thaw it. So it can come straight from frozen, which is what I'm going to do. All right. Now, I'm going to rinse it just a little bit, because in our house, we're somewhat of a clean freak together. So I'm going to rinse it just a tad here. And if it is a block, folks, again, like it is right now, because we keep a lot of stuff deep frozen, all you have to do is go ahead and put it into the water. All right, nothing extra special to do. You just go ahead and put that pot 3/4 full. Let me let you folks see what this looks like. 3/4 of the way full. And now I'm going to season that for the boil. Again, it's simply going to be salt and pepper. Now, I suggest you pepper it a little more than you think, because we can scoop the excess of pepper off, but I get a nice coating across the top of the water. So you can see that. I would go just a little bit more than you think on the pepper, but not excessive, right? So I've got it kind of coated across the top. Now I'm going to take some regular table salt. You can use the Himalayan salt or whatever, but this one's closest to me. So I take a palm full, a palm and a half maybe, for boil, all right? Because we're going to lose a lot of that. And if you're trying to cut back on salt, you don't have to use the full amount because there will be some flavoring inside of the other items we're going to add to this. So I think we're good on the salt there. The extra we're just getting rid of here. And we're going to put this on to boil. Now, folks, if you're not familiar with how the stove and everything works, again, there's a lot of new cooks now since everything has gotten expensive. People are learning to cook again, or trying to learn to cook again. You want to put a pot on to boil with the lid. Now, what that does is it holds the steam in and allows the pot to get hot quicker, so you won't spend as much energy or time waiting for your pot to come to a full boil. So I'm going to put that on, and we're going to turn that on high and let it start. Now, we always start that first because it's going to take a whole lot more time for that chicken to boil. Now, while that's happening, folks, I am going to go ahead and start my rice. Now, in order to cook rice the way that I do, you're going to need to know ratios. It's pretty simple, folks. If I'm cooking 1 cup of rice, which is what I have here, 1 cup of rice is going to take 2 cups and a quarter of water. Now, I want to show you folks how I do my rice. Again, another tip I got from my mom is you rinse your grains. Now, folks, if you're cooking and you don't rinse your grains, you may not know what you've got inside of it. The USDA allows a certain percentage of feces, insects, and etc. inside of your grains. Now, that may seem pretty nasty, but the reason for it is there's no way for those silos to keep all of that stuff out where they keep grain. So what you want to do is when you get your grains to the point of cooking or making your recipes, you want to rinse your grains. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move you folks right over here so you can see exactly how I rinse my grains. All right. I like to keep a sink of dishwater so I can wash dishes as I go. So when I'm done, folks, I don't have that much to do in the kitchen. Let's move that right over. I'm going to have some wings later, but for now, I just want to show you this. All right, so rinsing my grains, I'm going to turn this water on. It doesn't have to be hot. You do the same thing with your grits, folks. All those little black dots you see in people's grits, I don't eat other people's grits because if it's not Snow White, they didn't rinse their grains. So for the rice, I'm just going to fill it and shake it around. Crazy fact, long ago they used to use any dry type of powder, different types of dry powders to keep the rice from sticking together. From my understanding, at one point they actually used asbestos. I'm not sure exactly what they use now, but I've seen several things say they use cornstarch, things of that sort for it. But you see all of that cloudy water that's coming out of there? So whatever they may be using to keep the grain from sticking, rinsing that out. Also, some of the starch is coming out. Now, folks, that makes a difference when you cook rice or potatoes. The extra starch can cause things to be sticky, or for fries, they just don't fry up right. If you're having trouble or having failures with your French fries, it's because you're not soaking them and you're not getting that extra starch out. So, folks, I'll make a video on that sometime for you, but we'll keep rinsing the rice. Now, note that water is starting to get far more clear than it was when we first started. Now, it doesn't have to be crystal clear, but I do like mine pretty clear. All right, hopefully you folks can see how the water has changed. That cloudy look to the water is not there anymore. See how clear that is? So that's what we want. We want to make sure the grain is rinsed and it is clean and clear. All right, so there's a family secret or surrounding what I add to the rice. My wife asked me not to share that to the public, so you folks won't get to see that. However, I'm going to show you the basics. So 1 cup of rice requires 1 cup and a quarter or so of water. Using the same measurement that you use for the rice, that's going to be 1 cup. And that's going to be 2 cups. And I don't like crunchy rice, so I put maybe a little quarter of a cup in there. All right, put a quarter of a cup. Now, the salt, I'm going to put a quarter of a palm or so of salt. I use the same amount of salt in everything I cook. I keep it very low. So we're just going to put a small mound of salt. If you folks can't figure that, it's probably going to be like a half of a teaspoon. All right, that goes inside of the rice. And we make our very own butter. So if you like your rice buttery, you're going to put maybe 2 tablespoons, which is right about what we like in ours. Adds great flavor. And of course, our butter is homemade. It doesn't have preservatives or additives or anything in it. So we prefer to use our own. So for this recipe, for our rice, I'm going to put a little less than I would for just rice by itself. I'm going to go with about 1.5 tablespoons. And you'll find out why when we're all squared here, because we're going to have something else flavoring the rice. All right, it's going to be some of what we're cooking up with the chicken. So now that the rice is all together, we're going to go ahead and put our lid on, and we're going to put that on the stove too. Now, folks, you start the things that cook the longest first, and the things that are quicker to cook, you put them on behind it. So for you new cooks, when you're cooking rice, the way I've got it here, you put the lid on, as I told you before, to bring it up to temperature. And then I'm going to turn that rice on high. Now, only going to set that rice to high until I get a slight boil out of it. Once it gets that slight boil, I'm going to turn it down to low or a low simmer. All right, we're going to let it go for a little while, then we're going to stir it. And when I say a little while, I mean after it's boiling and turn that temperature down, you want to stir it. All right, we'll check back in on the rice in just a second. Now, the other portion of this meal is going to be a single healthy canned good. All right, so canned goods have gone through the roof lately, folks. But this is something you can depend on. No matter what happens, the canned goods are going to be less expensive and far more dependable for a meal than some of the other options out there. So canned goods, invest in them. So tonight, to go along with our meal, we're going to have cut green beans. We like the Del Monte, but there are many out there. All right. So we're going to open this up. Again, for those of you who are new cooks, you don't want to over-season or get too fancy with your vegetables. They're healthier when you just maybe add a little salt and pepper, and I always salt and pepper and butter, just to wake up the flavor. If you folks have tasted some people's collard greens and stuff like that, it's not even collard greens. So all I do, folks, is I take my cut green beans, I put them inside of here. There's plenty of water for it to boil. Again, the same amount of salt goes in all of my stuff. I try and keep my salt very low, maybe a half a teaspoon or so, just a little mound in the palm. I cast it about, and then I'm going to pepper it. Salt and pepper are basic seasonings for just about everything I do. You'll find salt and pepper. Not too much, not too little. And then I'm going to butter those cut green beans. And that's probably half a pallet there. Again, we're going to cover it to bring it to a boil. Now, the way I do all of my my vegetables, folks, I like them crisp, but I do like them cooked as well. So I'm going to turn it on high. And what I'll do to this is the exact same thing that I do with my corn. My mom loved my corn because it wasn't overcooked, but it was cooked properly, and it still has some crunch, and the juice would jump out when you bite it. So the exact same thing happens here. I'm going to bring this to a full rolling boil, and then I'm going to shut it off. The heat and the boil will cook the vegetables the rest of the way. Now, you'll find a lot of people overcook their vegetables, and all the nutrients and flavor and everything is now in the water. So when you have a meal with some of the old time cooks, they'll take a spoon and scoop some of that liquid onto your rice or something because, well, all the flavors boiled out of it and all the nutrients is inside of the juice now. But I don't like to do that. So we're going to cook it just to the right temperature. Let's visit this chicken again, folks. Notice the chicken is finally starting to get up to temperature, but we got a long way to go. Just wanted you folks to see how that boil has come up pretty fast. So keeping that covered allows us to keep that steam in there and bring that chicken up to a temperature pretty quick. All right. Now, if you folks can see this, the rice is actually starting to come to a boil. All right, we got some bubbling going on in there. So I'm going to need a spatula. All right, getting the spatula here. I'm going to stir this rice in just a second. All right, see that boil? Now that's about a good time for us to go ahead and stir it. Got my spatula. I'm going to turn this down completely to my lowest setting. Stir the rice a bit to make sure that it's free flowing. I'm not going to be sticking. All right, so we're going to stir it a total of 3 times while it's cooking. Right now, while we're coming down from that full rolling boil, we're going to stir it again once we start seeing the rice set at a level. And then finally, we'll stir it again at the very end to mix to make sure the butter and my special seasonings are all mixed into the rice. Now that rice is going to ride on its own now until it's time to stir it again. Meanwhile, let's see what's kicking with the chicken. Over here, our chicken's doing great. Note, folks, it does not take long at all. We are at an awesome rolling boil. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open this up and give it a stir just to make sure all of the chicken is free. Remember, we put it in here as a solid piece. And I'm just making sure that each of the pieces are free. They cook a little faster and more evenly if you go ahead and break them apart if they are sticking together. But I think we're pretty good here, folks. You see that chicken? It's cooking pretty good. Cooking pretty fast. See those 2 pieces there? They're stuck together. So I'm going to separate them so they can cook a little faster or evenly as well. There we go. All right. Pieces are separated. Now, folks, if you cook this with drumsticks, don't take the skin off. Or if you cook it with the thighs with the bone in it, do not take the skin off. The skin adds some of the flavoring, some of the juice and stuff that's there. The oil from the skin's going to give us a good flavor. So don't take that off. I'm going to show you something that I add to this to make sure we don't have a loss of flavor when we get closer to the end. That's going to be chicken bouillons. I'm going to put 2 chicken bouillons inside of our water once our chicken is boiled down and ready. Now, the way we know this chicken is ready, 1, a lot of the water will be gone because we don't want this much water in our poor boy stew. So we're going to let it just boil on out. It's going to reduce it. That's what it's called, reducing it, when we get rid of some of the water. And we're going to add 2 of these bouillon cubes for flavor. Now, folks, if you look right across the chicken here, you're going to see that our cut green beans are up to a full rolling boil. Now, remember what we said we do? We go ahead and shut that off once it's up to a rolling boil. So we're going to shut that off and let it finish cooking itself and not overcooking itself. So we've got some crisp but well-cooked cut green beans. Our meal is going to continue on, folks, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, folks, we're back. We're rolling right along. The chicken's coming along, and the rice is at that point I told you about. Now, I want you to see exactly what I meant by coming to a level top. When I take this off, you folks see that? the rice is kind of level across the top. It's starting to take on a lot of the moisture, but there's still a lot of it left. So we're going to make a stir now. This is stir number 2. You don't have to do too much folding or anything outrageous, but we just want to make sure that all of the moisture is not just sitting in the bottom or somewhere along those lines. And everything inside the rice, the butter, the salt, the special additions, are all mixed around inside of the rice. All right, so the rice is good to go. We'll make a final stir on that once she gets down to the point. The cut green beans, I want you folks to see that as well. It's still at a nice little simmer, going just fine. That'll be perfect when we're done here in just a moment. And the chicken. Let's do our check back in on the chicken. So the chicken, of course, is boneless thighs tonight. But you'll note that seasoning throughout the fat in the chicken, that pepper. This chicken is going to cook a little quicker than it would bone in. However, still getting the same results. You see that reddish pinkish color? That means we've got a lot of boiling left to do. You don't want any raw chicken. All right. When it's cooked well, it's going to take on the flavor we're going to add here in just a moment quite easily and quite well. So we'll be back again in just a moment. All right, folks, the rice is basically done. We're ready for our last little stir we talked about. See how great that looks? Still flaky. All right. I'm going to stir it about just to make sure we're not sticking or burning, making a mess. Now, something I see a lot of, well, not necessarily brand new cooks do, they put everything in a pot that's too small. I would have preferred maybe a pot a little bigger than this, but it was big enough to take all the water, the boiling, and everything else. So that's something you want to pay attention to when you're cooking. You want to make sure that you got a pot a little bigger than what you think you need. That way you got space when you get a rolling boil or anything like that, so it doesn't just boil over and cause you a mess. So the rice is ready. So we're going to go ahead and shut that off, and I'm going to take it off of that hot eye so it doesn't continue to cook and dry out. Tastes good too. All right, so the rice is done. Just take a look at the cut green beans. Now those cut green beans are done. And folks, you'll note that they are still fairly crisp, but done. Can you folks see that? They're not overcooked. The juice in the peas isn't all dark like pea soup. But they are done and they are fairly crisp. I want to show you how firm they still are, but soft enough to where a bite would just tear into it. Look at that. All right. So not overcooked, but definitely done. All right. So I'm going to put the top back on that so it'll hold the heat because the chicken is almost completely done. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the heat. Now, I've got stainless steel pots, so they've got the little heat conductor on the bottom. I'll show you one that's empty. It's a wonderful set of pots to buy. This holds the heat, so whenever you shut the pot off or get it warm, you can shut it off, folks, and saves a lot of energy, and you don't have to keep the eye on to continue cooking stuff. So it'll hold the heat, and you'll save a lot of energy if you have pots like that. It's a great selection. I love the stainless steel because they're easier to clean. I don't use non-stick things for, healthy reasons. Those things can have stuff inside of your food as they deteriorate. So, okay, so taking a look at this, you'll see the juice. It's got a little bit of a dark color to it because of the the chicken and the pepper, I go through and I'll take the extra off the walls. See that, folks? I take that little bit of excess off there because we're about to stir in the flavor. The flavor, the savor. Okay? Inexpensive chicken's in there. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a couple of chicken bouillon. Doesn't have to be the powder. You folks can go ahead and take the bouillon itself and drop them right in there. Now I've got two. I think I usually put 3 in here, so I'll grab another. And note that that water has reduced. Left one of the tabs here. And grab that off before it disappears. Now, any chicken bouillons will do just fine. I buy these because I get them in bulk and I use them a lot. So this is what I'm using today. These are the ones from Sam's. You guys can get them from anywhere. And I'm going to throw a third one in here. Now, here's where the special little steps to this recipe comes in. Now, we talked about the ramen noodle. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to open it. Now, the crazy thing about this ramen noodle is the little packet that we're after is on this side without the seam. But it's easier to open it from the side with the seam. So what we do is this. You folks can see this. I'm going to open it up. I'll take a look over here. Let me move you folks so you can see it a little better. I'm going to open it up and reach right up under here and get the packet. I'm going to do that to both of them. Now, you can plus or minus the packets depending upon how much chicken and rice you're going to be making, how big the family is, or if you're just making it for yourself. Tonight, I'm making it just for me and my wife. So this is what we're fishing for. We want these little packets. Now, these little packets are going to act just like the bouillon. However, they've got a different flavor. They add that additional flavor that we're looking for. Now, you can rip it, but I'm going to cut it so you guys can see as I spread it through the juice here from the boiled chicken. Now, I want you folks to take a look at this. You see that? The oil on the top of that chicken? That's the flavor from the skin and the fat. So you don't want to take that out of there. What I do is when I'm doing like drumsticks with the skin on, I actually pull the skin off now. All right, so you can pull the skin off of the drumstick or the thigh now. So that way when you eat it, you don't have to worry about working with the skin. Now, you don't have to if you don't want to, but we prefer it without the skin. So I'm going to cast the little flavor packet into the water. Now, folks, while I'm doing this, I'm going to tell you something else. If the water has not reduced to maybe just above the chicken, you probably got too much. And you don't want it to be watered down, but you do want enough to deal with our next step. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put this flavoring here. All right, got it all in there. And the next thing we're going to do is now we're going to add our ramen. I'll stir this around first just to make sure we've got the flavor to savor all over. All right, got them in there. And now it's time for the noodles. I always open the pack over here so I don't make a mess. Sometimes there's a few of them that are broken, as you see them dropping in there. And now I break these. Now, I don't put them in long. My wife tends to like long noodles, so I leave some long and some short. But I break them up so that way not only can it fit in the pot for it to cook, but it spreads easier over the rice. That's one down. One more to go. All right, all the broken ones. Now I'll maybe make this one, a couple of these a little longer. So she'll have a few of her longs, and I'll break the rest of them into shorts. Because folks, you'll notice if you've been watching my channel, I like to make things easy to eat. All right, so now the temperature is off, but the water is hot enough to take care of the noodles. So I'm just going to make sure they're submerged. And we're going to give it maybe, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes. It's not going to take very much. We're going to make sure that they are submerged well. And I am going to cover it with no heat. It'll be still on the hot eye, but no additional heat. Now I'm going to go ahead and take all of this and throw it away, because as soon as it's done with those noodles, it's ready to eat. And we'll be back in just a moment. All right, folks, we're back. Let's take a look at everything. Yeah. I'd say the noodles are just right. All right. Doesn't take very much. Looks good, tastes good. Is good. Notice all of the chicken and everything kind of in there. Some noodly, chickeny goodness. So it's good to go, fresh, hot, and I serve it over rice. So we've got our rice here, folks. My wife loves this as well. Again, bless it. Bless my late mother's soul. It's a wonderful little meal here. Rice. And chicken. Put the bird in here. And from there, noodles and stew. Now, folks, this is delicious. Again, very inexpensive. We're talking about under $9 for this entire meal. There we go. And from here, we'll add some cut green beans for little veggies as side items. And there you go, folks. A very hearty, inexpensive meal that tastes great. The po' boy stew. All right. Through these hard times, you can learn to cook things, folks. I'll try and make more inexpensive meals for the channel. Stay tuned, and folks, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, that's what Dad can do.